Hello, friends, and welcome to the Noclip podcast, episode 62. Danny here with the full crew. Jesse, how you doing?
Yo, doing great.
Frank, what's up?
Great. Hello.
Jeremy, acknowledge your existence.
I am.
Wow. Jeremy. Yes, we're here. We're all alive. We're all delighted to be here on this Red Letter Day because, boy, oh boy, our Black Mesa documentary went up only about an hour ago. Kind of just popped it out there. It was kind of last night. Everyone on the team did a review of it because it's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and there's only so many times I can watch it before I don't notice anything anymore.
Valve threw us the keys to the kingdom and let us do whatever the heck we wanted to.
It's almost half my life of working with people who really care about that and who wanted to see it through.
Jeremy's obviously already done all of that because he edited this whole thing over the course of a couple of months. And yeah, I watched it one more time last night. I added all your notes. We got some notes from the patrons too, actually, which is great. All the early access people. I always feel a little bit way about that, where like they're paying for early access, but they're kind of like a free QA pool.
Pay to do work for you for free. Thank you so much, by the way.
Exactly. Really appreciate it. It was funny watching their edits come in, and it was like by and large stuff that you guys had said, but there was a couple that like, oh no, yeah, we missed that too. It shows you like you just need hundreds of eyeballs on it, and it's why I hate the first hour of the thing being up, because I'm just waiting for something to be wrong. And we had that on the Rockstar one. I had to make a change and re-upload it. First time that's happening forever.
Right, yeah.
Looks like it's good. Algorithm has taken it up into its beautiful wings, it looks like, so we'll see how it does. Yeah, delighted to have it done. Jeremy, how are you feeling? I mean, you know, I did the interviews and kind of, I was about to say cleaned it up. He didn't have me as something dirty, but we sort of we found this new way of working with some of these bigger projects, which is like kind of handing it off when you've reached your like diminishing marginal returns of editing or something, where you're just like wiped on a project. You got it like basically to the finish line, and I just added in the script and the voiceover and did some trimming here and there and stuff, but you did the lion's share of the editing. How was the project for you, especially considering you had like so much to work with? It was 4 very long interviews.
Yeah. This is the longest, not only one of the coolest stories that we worked on, but this is the longest thing that I've edited in my entire life, I'm pretty sure. And I used to edit documentaries for PBS. It's cool to finally see it out there. It was a weird process. I've talked about it a bit on the podcast previously, but I think the total runtime of all the interviews end to end was over 8 hours.
Jeez.
And so the first pass of this was basically just watching it all, doing a ton of log notes, and paring it down into a svelte 5.5 hours. And
Director's cut.
Yeah, exactly. The Redux. At that point, I was kind of like, you and I hadn't talked about the length for this thing. You basically were just like, figure it out and see what it wants to be. And it was then I started to realize, oh no, this is going to be really, really long. And at that point I was like, it's definitely over an hour, but it can't be over like, it can't be 4 hours. Like but there's so much. It's just like, I mean, people who watch the doc will get the sense, but it's just everything they talk about, everything about this project is just so interesting that it's like if you have the remotest interest in Half-Life or video games development or just like documentaries about this kind of stuff, it's just fun to listen to them talk about because it's such a unique process. It's not only making a game, it's also the weird like push-pull between maintaining faith to the original but also like innovating in certain ways. It's just like everything about it is so interesting. And so they would talk about something really mundane and I'd be like, we can't cut this like this. And so it was that for 5.5 hours of runtime. But it was a challenge, but it was really fun, and I'm I'm glad it's out there, because towards the end of the editing process, I definitely was like, I think it was like Christmas break. I took some time away from it, and I remember coming back to it and being like horrified to open the project again, because it's just like, I knew it was cool, but it was like, I've spent so much time with this that it's impossible to have objectivity at that point. So it's just like, I hope this is as good as it feels to me.
I think that's why I enjoy this process so much. Not only because I don't have to edit 8 hours of interviews. Thank you again for taking that. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I was trying the best to balance it. And I was like, we need to get this thing out. We recorded, I did these interviews back in late 2020. Like this is it's taken a while. But I remember getting the cuts and watching the cut that you had finished, which didn't have the voiceover. It had a bunch of like interesting notes, like you do a good job like throwing text up in sections, being like, you should like maybe do something here or blah 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 blah. And the first time I watched it, usually when you watch a rough cut, you're like kind of like taking notes and trying to like think, okay, how could I augment what Jeremy's trying to do here, or like what's a part of this that I'd like to add my own little bit of flavor to, a little splash. I just sat back and watched it. I just enjoyed it. It was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Like I'm a massive Half-Life nerd, and I was like, this is like infinitely watchable. Like it's just, I don't know what it is. I guess it's Half-Life, and it's because a bunch of us are Half-Life fans. But there's something about, usually when we're talking to people about games, or no, maybe it's when you're a viewer of one of these documentaries, the sort of the piece of the thing that like grounds you is the final game, and you're sort of talking about this ethereal fake version of the game that the developer had to work on for years, because the tip of the spear is the actual game that got launched, and we're trying to talk about this other thing. Whereas everyone who's watching this, or a lot of people who've watched this, I'd say there's more people who have played Half-Life than Black Mesa, so they know the start point of the project more than they know the end point. So I think that's why it like works so well, because most people watching this, I'm assuming, have the foundational knowledge of what Half-Life 1 is. So everything the developers are talking about, we get, because we're like, yeah, of course. Like there's that bit where he talks about the guards saying that line. It's like, I remember that.
At the very end of Office Complex, there's you meet up with a guard and a scientist, and the guard has just like one line of dialogue where he just says, like, hey, the elevator's out of order, but we can still climb.
Elevators are out of order, but we can still climb.
Like I remember what happens when you go upstairs and that moment. Yeah. So it's like, there's probably not many other projects we can do like this, like maybe like a Final Fantasy VII remake, or I guess Demon's Souls is kind of that as well, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we talked about this on the podcast, or at least one of our team meetings. But the Peter Jackson Beatles documentary, I don't care at all about the Beatles, like at all. I think they have like a few good songs and whatever, but like it's not. It doesn't have that like cultural thrust in my mind. It just doesn't hit me like that. But that documentary is so good because what it does is it takes this huge breadth of footage and it properly establishes the context for everything that's about to happen. And so like it's such a light touch too. Like a little card will pop up and it'll be like, John is like late for practice and Paul's about to write like the biggest song that like the Beatles will ever have. And then you just watch them like, and it's such an ordinary moment. Like it's just, like Paul McCartney messing around on bass and like coming up with a little bit of a vocal melody. But because you have the context that, oh, he's like about to write, like Baby You Can Drive My Car. It's not that song, but like a song that you know of, and the context is established. You're like, oh, like what otherwise would be such a mundane moment, and what probably felt to the people in that room like just another day in the practice room or whatever, you're like, oh, this is like, I'm about to witness magic happening or something. And so in some sense, you're like, because it's the stakes. It's not just context, it's knowing the stakes. And I think that's what, having experienced Half-Life and knowing the context of like Half-Life is this huge like monolithic piece of culture, the stakes are like, God, it would be embarrassing to mess that up.
Yeah. Frank, how you feeling watching all your gameplay? You did a lot of recording for this thing.
Yeah, it's surprising as I was watching it. Like, it's a massive game, and it's amazing how much detail is spent on the Zen areas. because I was just remembering all those days in like October, November where I played it, and there'd be some shots in there where I remember spending like a few hours trying to nail or getting stuck at a part, and it's there for like 10 seconds, and it's like, oh, we're already moving on, but like it's like just this very intense like flashback to that moment. I remember sitting here at my computer like getting that shot. Yeah, it's cool, but I also appreciate that you guys found like the sweet spots. Like when I do gameplay capture, like sometimes I tag them as idle shots. Like I'll find a really cool vista or just NPCs interacting, and I'll just sit back, and I love seeing all those moments appear in the dock. And so it's like, yeah, there's also very one specific detail near the end where they talk about there's the developers are saying like, oh, it's actually fortunate COVID didn't throw us off much. We were able to still work.
We're super fortunate that COVID hitting and everything really didn't impact us because we're a remote studio to begin with. As hard as it's been to deal with COVID and just life in general, like we're really fortunate that we were able to work within those constraints.
And then you guys paired the B-roll of in Black Mesa, there's a poster that says, vaccinated, get a booster.
Oh.
And so like that is such a great synergy of like the devs saying something about working in the era of COVID, the devs putting something in the game. I don't know if that was patched or if that had always been there. Imagine that was, I don't know. And then
That would have been crazy.
yeah, right.
I think it was always in there. Right? Jeremy did the shot. I watched on my first watch through, and it is like literally 3 minutes from the end of the thing or something, and that popped up, and I laughed so hard. I was like, oh Jesus, what a great little match cut. Yeah, that was sure. I think that was always in it, wasn't it? I think. Well, I guess we don't know. But
yeah.
I don't think they patched that in.
Yeah. That was such a great moment. And I also remember, unrelated, but it reminded me when I was doing Dishonored gameplay capture in like May 2020, so much of Dishonored is just beware the plague, stay indoors, avoid the plague. The plague is spreading in the city. And it's like, oh, this is brutal. This is brutal.
Do not attempt to house or care for a friend or family member who shows signs of blood on their face and chest area.
I felt the same way when I was playing Spider-Man again recently, just for fun, because it's a great game swinging around, but there's that whole section later on where they release that virus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like New York's on lockdown. It's like, stay home, wash your hands, 6 feet apart, like distance, quarantine. And I'm like, no, I'm playing to escape reality, all right? I don't want to have to live through this again. Leave me alone, Spider Guy.
We need to keep the disease contained. The more it spreads and the more people who are sick, the fewer resources there are to go around.
Well, I'm sorry we put that bit in the stand-ups where I had the mask on. We did it.
That was funny though.
Yeah, we did two shots of it. I thought it would be funny just to have like because I got those Black Mesa masks. I bought something off the Valve store and they had them there for like nothing because no one was buying them. So I was like, I'll get those, and I've worn them a couple of times. Because I'm a huge nerd, we did both versions. We also recorded an intro to another doc that we might do, right, Jeremy? Because there's quite a lot left over.
Yeah, we did a little potential intro for a Redux version, a longer version of the doc, because we were talking about like we were talking about earlier in this pod. There's so much that ended up on the cutting room floor that is interesting. That I mean, there's a world in which we go back and do the Omega cut that has like 4 hours of dense game design.
The Jane cut. Put that on HBO Max.
Exactly. It's
in 4:3, black and white.
yeah. It's my Snyder cut.
Yeah, our patron only Snyder cut or something. Yeah, so we'll see about that. I think right now everyone's happy not to be editing a documentary about Black Mesa, so we'll probably just like chill out for a while. But I mean, if there's more to get out of it, right? Because if a lot of people watch it, which I'm sure they will, we have a lot of Half-Life fans on our channel. Definitely skews a certain direction when it comes to the games we cover a little bit, and classic PC games come up a lot. It's probably a lot to do with who is sort of making the docs and the makeup of the team. So yeah, it might be a fun one to put together. We never know these days when we have that sort of make hay while the sun is shining feeling when it comes to filming in between COVID breaks. I'm already looking at like what's going on in China at the moment with the new variant and being like, all right, okay, we got like, what we got? We got like maybe 6 good weeks there where we just need to go and fucking collect the ingredients.
Yeah, you got to film a year's worth of docs in the next 3 weeks. Get in your cars. Why are we even doing this? You should be on the road right now.
Yeah, we can't just stretch the arcane stuff for a year and a half like we did last time. But alas, we'll talk about more of that. Thanks so much to all of our patrons for funding the work that we do, and especially everyone who came on this time last year. This is a byproduct of a lot of the stuff that the increased funding allowed us to do. You know, the whole doc is in 4K. It looks so good. I watched it on my television last night in this living room, and like Half-Life 1 has never looked that good. Like, it's so ridiculous. All Frank's gameplay is so sharp. You can see the like edge of Barney's block chin. It's just like so clean. It's so nice to watch on a television. And then of course, like, everyone touched this doc in some respect. Frank did so much gameplay. Jeremy obviously edited it. I got to focus on stuff like hosting and the script. And you know, Jesse was helping us out with QA. Dennis is going to do captions. He's doing them at the moment, but this doc is like 4 times longer, maybe 5 times longer than most of our videos. So it's going to take him a couple of days, and I'm not going to ask him to crunch on that or anything. So please be patient. We always try and get captions out the same day or on when the video goes live, but it basically the toss up was, now will we put it up today or will we put it up on Monday? Because I'm gone this weekend, so I can't put it up. So we decided to stick it, or I decided to stick it up today, and we'll get the captions done as quick as possible. He's working on it. So thanks to everyone for allowing us to do this stuff, and hopefully you enjoyed the doc, and we've plenty more coming, which we'll talk about later because I've been rambling too much. We got some games written down on this list here, on this document. Jeremy, you're playing Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of us here are a little crazy, but that's the best part of being friends.
So a bunch of people have told me to play the Yakuza games, and I've never really been attracted to that series not because I am not into the themes or like the style of storytelling seems right up my alley, but I don't really like brawlers, I guess, or like action games in that vein. I think they're cool, but they're just not my cup of tea. And so I've always felt like it was a series that I would enjoy a lot, but mechanically wasn't really my thing. So Like a Dragon is the only one in the series that is kind of a more old school, traditional RPG style combat. So the thing that interests me the most about it is I haven't played a ton of it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about it because I think what it does that I didn't realize is very fascinating is that it takes a lot of traditional, and there's like a story reason for this I won't go into because I don't want to spoil a reveal on it, but it takes a lot of kind of traditional RPG mechanics and it overlays them onto parts of life in like a Japanese metropolis kind of like. So for example, there's like a homeless guy with an umbrella who like drinks booze and breathes through a lighter and breathes fire and stuff. And he's a mage, which is awesome. Like that's awesome on its own. But then the added kind of like that's the hook, and then the kicker is that he's the mage, and so it's like it's so fascinating because it's not like it's taking all of these tropes that are these well trodden like tropes and stereotypes of the RPG genre, and then I mean I haven't played a ton of it. They've never called him a mage so far. I don't know if they do.
It gets this is the makeup of our crew stuff gets real explicit.
Does it?
Later
Okay,
on.
cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's awesome because it's like you get a very strong sense of it even early on, and it's so fascinating to me because it's just like I think that's something I really liked about. I've mentioned Disco Elysium a lot on this podcast, but it's something I really like about Disco Elysium is that it does what I think clever game design should do, which is it takes something that is not inherently gamey, but is something that is like resonant to ordinary life, and it gamifies it. And so in Disco Elysium, that's kind of like it doing stat checks and dice rolls against like your mental health, or like against like addiction, or like social awkwardness and things like that. Or like you can have like a social faux pas because your charisma stat is too low.
Slither up to her, you silver-tongued fiend. Show her what world-class perfidy looks like.
That stuff is really interesting because it's I think those type of stories are more resonant to me than like fantasy tropes or something. Like I like classic fantasy tropes too. I like knights and dragons and stuff. But when you take those kind of like resonant archetypes of that genre that I like very much, and you transpose them onto contemporary life. It's such an interesting mix. So I'm excited to play more of it. I really like it a lot.
Nice. Frank, I feel like I played a bunch of Like a Dragon. That was also my sort of entry into the Yakuza games. I tried to get into them before and a little bit too self-serious, and something about Like a Dragon, I think also just the fact that it felt like it was the first in a series helped me a bit. But you're fairly familiar with these, right? Like I feel like you played a bunch of them.
I feel like I've played half of the games, and there's a lot. But I think Like a Dragon's by far my favorite. I think because it breaks away from how serious the Yakuza games can be. And the Yakuza games, like the main story is always very serious. It's the side missions that are very comical, very funny. Like a Dragon's like main story is very funny, and it is all the fantasy tropes they weld in. But yeah, that game blew me away. I was so addicted to it, because it's a massive JRPG, but I beat it within the month it came out, and so I'm excited for Jeremy to keep on going with it because I think it's an 80-hour game, but I adored every hour of it. It's so good. And then like I was saying, I'm playing Lost Judgment now, and I like Lost Judgment because now you're returning to the city that Like a Dragon takes place in.
If you want a closer look, I'll be more than happy to accommodate you.
I'm also just hoping that Studio RGG is making a sequel to Like a Dragon, which I think they've confirmed because I just can't wait to play more of that game.
Did it get a PlayStation 5 little kick up the arse? Did it get one of those?
Yeah.
It did?
Yeah, so that's the nice thing is like if I ever feel like replaying it, and I believe you can transfer your save, although actually...
You probably can, but it's probably a pain in the ass like it is with every other PS5, PS4 port. It's like, oh, you got to save the saves from the PS4 version and then download the PS5 version and then transfer. It's like, come on.
Now that I think about it, the first game I played and like beat on my PS5 was the PS4 version of Like a Dragon. Like that was my PS5 launch console experience. But it was so great. So I haven't played the PS5 edition of it. But yeah, all of those games are great, and I feel like every Yakuza fan you'll talk to will have a different recommendation of where to start. Yakuza 0 was a breakthrough for the series. The Kiwamis are really great remakes of the OG PS2 games. I haven't touched 3 through 6, but then Judgment's its own thing if you want to start fresh. But they're all just so adorably Sega, and I love those games.
They're very like the tone is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like what it reminds me of most is the movies of Bong Joon-ho, because I think that there's this interplay between and this is something that I feel like is lacking from a lot of like big blockbuster movies that don't click with me, is I really like the interplay between like hyper seriousness and like very, very silly themes. And I think that there is a way, I think that like kind of full spectrum style of storytelling has been like, I don't know what the word is. There's a way in which people attempt that, but in a more like Joss Whedon-y way, where they're like, there's like everyone busts into a room and they like shoot the bad guy, and then the hero goes like, "Oh, did that hurt?" And it's like kind of like weird and quippy, and it doesn't
just happen.
Oh yeah, it's 90s movies turned into modern day things.
Totally, yeah. Where like Chris Pratt kicks down a door and he's like, "Oh, I'll pay for that," and you're like, "No, this is a serious moment. Like, stop quipping."
I know a couple of magic words myself, starting with the word please.
Please, Scooby-Doo this crap.
And I think that the Yakuza games do a really good job of having that kind of full spectrum between serious and like comedy and drama, basically, and understanding that they're not mutually exclusive, but there is a time when you shouldn't be undercutting the seriousness with jokes. You can do something that's very funny, and so you can have like serious and silly in the same scene, but there's a time to like pull back on the comedy and just let your character cry for a minute. And like I think that is, I think being unafraid of like drama without cutting it with comedy is a really powerful thing.
It's like, so when I'm definitely going to go play this now, hearing Jeremy talk about it and Frank talk about it again. It's kind of like, yeah, God, I need to see that out, because I think I played maybe 20 hours of it and really liked it, and then popped off. But like, yeah, the ability, the confidence in the writing to be able to like even have characters who are both. It's not like there are comic relief characters and they're serious characters, or like the main quest is very serious and then the side quests are all jokey, like you were saying, Frank. Like everything is kind of everything. Like that character you're talking about, the alcoholic homeless guy, like he is like definitely a source of comic relief during the thing, but also he has a very serious arc. And even in the main story, there's like very funny, ridiculous parts that happen when you're like going up after the bosses. But like I was just reminded of like even like a comic relief scene ends up being like an interesting like sort of self-reflective serious thing. Have you done the mission with the looking for the milk for the babies?
Oh, I just found that guy.
Okay, I'm not saying anything then, because that's a good example of like this like seems like it's like serious and then funny, but then also kind of like serious, and you kind of walk away from these scenarios with like a sort of deeper sense of like society and like an understanding about like it's you just can't tell the places where they're going to. Like it's like, not to paint too broad a brush, but like you were saying, in like some media, maybe it's Western media, maybe it's all media, I don't know. But like you can tell who the comic relief characters are, where they're going to lean into the silliness and it's going to be jokey, and when they're going to lean into the seriousness and it's going to be serious. And I just can't tell where they're going in Yakuza in Like a Dragon. It's like it seems like it's funny, and then it's like, oh, there's like a heart to this part, and then it's like a serious part, and it turns into farce.
You know,
it's just so good.
What you just made me think is, and I never made this connection in my head until now, but it reminds me a little bit of the YouTube channel 5 that used to be All Gas No Breaks with Andrew Callahan, where it's like you'll be watching and it'll be like this just absurd person will come on and they'll be saying like the most absurd thing. You'll be like, I can't believe this is a real person that exists in the world. And the funny thing about it is they'll be saying something where you're like, oh, this is like, it's like cringe comedy and they're like making a fool of themselves. But then there's a turn where they'll say something and be like, yeah, man, and like my grandpa just died, and you're like, oh my God, I'm like
this interview.
Spring break.
Yeah, what about it? We got one guy in the ER right now, but you know, we still make it. We still power through.
I fucking hate it here.
Come on.
It's the way in which it can it can pivot on a dime and just make you feel something that like, yeah, I don't know. There's something to be said for seeing the humor in things, but doing it in a way that's not mean-spirited, like doing it in a way that's heartful, because then you can kind of like, if you can laugh at yourself and laugh at other people but also have empathy for them, it creates this more potent mix of comedy and drama, I think.
Yeah, that show How to with John Wilson on man, everybody needs to watch that. It does exactly the same thing. It's so beautiful in that like it shows the absurdity of New York City and how like it's kind of like you're watching a sitcom. Every corner that you turn in New York City, nothing there makes any sense. Everyone's fake. I assume everyone's an actor in New York City, and it's just you see like the reality of it, and then he breaks it down, and you're like, oh, like the episode about scaffolding in that show, which sounds so mundane, is like, who cares? It's scaffolding on a building, you know, it's there to protect you when you're walking under it, and he turns it into this piece about how art and cities and the beauty of the world is defined by like how we build things and what we view as beautiful and how we like can control it and the world and everything. And yeah, you're so right that like that element of things is so beautiful, taking the mundanity and just finding that beauty in it eventually. Yeah, and it's also very funny. It's just a very funny show. Nathan, for you, executive producer, Nathan Fielder, hilarious.
The world is full of people that need to get something off their chest. So buckle up, baby, because things are about to get pretty wild.
Studio RGG seems like it might be on the crosshairs here, so let's all keep playing.
Yeah,
and it'd be fun if because I'm kind of jonesing for an excuse to head back to Japan, so that could be a goodie. Lots of B-roll. We'll have was that guy a cop or a Yakuza guy who told us to stop filming that time? He was an undercover cop, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. We were that was in Akihabara.
Yeah, he didn't like that.
Couple cops came up to us and
oh boy.
Yeah, usually when we're filming in public, I have a few preloaded excuses about being a student filmmaker, or Danny and I are on our honeymoon and we're just documenting the experience
in the desert. Yeah,
couldn't pull that in Japan. They weren't having any of it.
No. How's your Japanese?
It's very limited. I can say thank you very much and sorry.
Arigato gozaimasu.
Gozaimasu.
Nailed it.
Gozaimasu.
That was beautiful.
Can't do it anymore. Y'all, you wouldn't know that I'm currently playing Ghostwire Tokyo.
Ooh.
Don't fear the unknown. Attack it.
Which is out soon. Is it late this week? Next week?
25th? 24th?
Soon.
Something like that? 28th? Yeah.
What am I, journalist?
I think the following week, yeah.
Is it? Okay, couldn't tell you. So yeah, I think it's the full version I have, but they have given it out as a preview build because they're basically saying don't talk about editing past a certain chapter, which is why you've seen like sort of limited previews maybe on some of the websites and YouTube channels out there. Yeah, I won't get too much into it because there's not too much to talk about. I think whether or not this game is going to work enough for a lot of people is probably going to be on the longer tail. So I'll be interested to see what the reviews are like. But yeah, I guess I'll open up the questions, I guess, in a second. But my sort of top level on it is, so this is from Tango Gameworks, who have done like, Evil Within. I feel like stuff like that is kind of the baseline for this, maybe, of like what type of game we're talking about. It is a first-person game set in Tokyo. It's very mystical. Most of the city is like disappeared because this fog rolled in. It's all about like ghosts and the afterlife. It's not very spooky, I wouldn't say. Like, it tries to do some sort of like Fear style, doors opening, closing, creepy little girls kind of stuff here and there. But it's so like the palette of this game is very vibrant, and it's a lot about exploration and stuff. So it's not like, it's not like Evil Within style crawling around or anything like that. It's a sort of an open world that opens slowly. So you sort of go to these, what are those gates called? Those beautiful
Torii
Japanese
gates?
Yeah, those things. You go to those, and each one of these you unlock it. Basically, the fog that's in Tokyo dissipates, and eventually, you have access to a bigger city. And
so they're fog gates, is what you're saying?
Fog gates, I guess they are. What's a fog gate? What do you reference?
Some sort of Soulsian.
You're right. Yeah, fog gate. God, yeah. But I don't have to, check how many souls I have before I decide to walk into it or not, so I don't lose them all. Yeah. So it's a weird game to try and explain what it is. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. I think it's going to find an audience like a lot of their games do. But I don't think it's the slam dunk, this is for everyone open world Tango Gameworks game. It's very like, there's lots of things about it I think people will like. I think the art design people will really be into. It's full of like unique mechanics. Like the combat isn't the most interesting at the start. But again, I feel like if you're talking about this game 8 hours later, maybe by then there's a lot going on. Because like a lot of the enemies are unique, and there's a lot of different combat techniques, and there's a lot of different things going on, so it's hard to sort of tell in chapter 2 when they're still very tutorializing you about some of this stuff, like how deep that stuff goes. It's kind of like trying to talk about how good like a Far Cry or Assassin's Creed game is 4 hours in. Like, you really still don't know. It's kind of one of those. It does a lot of stuff with the DualSense, which I thought was neat. I'm like, this is one where you're going to want to plug your pad in a little bit because it's constantly vibrating that thing and making weird noises come out of it. It's all in Japanese, and the voice acting, all that stuff sounds super legit, but you have to read subtitles, so it's a bit tricky sometimes because you're doing a lot of reading subtitles while you're walking around. So that's a bit weird. Yeah. What do you guys... Because I feel like this is a game that people had a lot of questions about before it came out, because the trailers have been sort of like... It's hard to pin down what it is.
Yeah, I haven't seen... I think I saw teaser trailers years ago. I haven't seen any new footage of it, but does it feel like an action-y survival horror like typical Mikami games? Is it like, are you killing ghosts? Are you taking pictures of them like Fatal Frame? What is the actual action of it?
So you have like you have spells almost. So it's first person, and he's doing like hand tricks and stuff to do various types of spells. You're essentially shooting like magic at them half the time, just like bang bang bang, like finger guns almost. And then there's some things like if you weaken certain enemies a certain way, you can hold a button to destroy their sort of heart. There's lots of different types of like, it's very like side quest and like different activity rich. Like when you open up a new area, there's a lot of like, go do some stuff, and like there's things that you can get to the top of some buildings by like using this weird hook thing you have on a beast. There are cats that you can go up and say hi to, and you get unlocks from them. There are telephone booths that you can use to upload souls. It's like there's a lot of like, it's that.
Excuse me?
It's very esoteric. I don't know, you thought the fog gates were one thing.
Yeah, fog doors, uploading souls.
Oh yeah,
it sounds extremely up my alley.
Yeah, my favorite thing in any of these games is, are there upgrades? Are there skill trees?
It's like all that. Totally, like that, and that's why I think it's so hard to say where it's at, because like I don't think the 5 hours into this game experience is probably going to be very emblematic of the 30-hour one. But it's not like you're walking around a lot. It feels like it kind of controls and feels a little bit like a lot of like Xbox 360 era first person games, where it's a very it's not like Call of Duty where you're sprinting everywhere. It's kind of more slow and methodical. The areas you're in are very dense with stuff to do. So yeah, it's hard to like, Evil Within is probably a good touch point, but it's just tonally, it's not nowhere near that. It's not scary, and it's not difficult. I didn't find this game difficult at any stage. Again, early, maybe they're tutorializing you a little bit still. But yeah, so it's I think the story will pull you along, or if you're the type of open world person who likes to kind of do everything. I think if you don't vibe with the aesthetic and the sort of the tone of it, it mightn't be for you. And that's why I feel like it'll find a strong audience, but I don't think it's going to be like a slam dunk. I wonder what the reviews are going to be like, because I can imagine somebody really not liking going through this, and I can imagine people being like, oh, I loved everything about, like, because it's new and different and novel in lots of different ways, and in other ways it's kind of just another open world game, at least what I've played so far.
Yeah, some of the enemies that you see, like there's that like Slenderman with an umbrella.
Salary Slenderman.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. Put a little suit on a Slenderman, but like make him have a job too, Like,
yeah,
why not? Give him a part-time.
It's a lot of that, like, otakus will dig it. It's got a lot of it has headless schoolgirls.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean? Like the Japanese schoolgirl without a head. It's got, like you said, the salary slender man. It's got like a lot of stuff like that. Like the main antagonist is where, like, that's the face, the sort of like mask that's on the on the box is that thing. It has your family member in distress who you're trying to save, and it has a internal conflict with the sort of like the person you play and the being that is trying to get you to do things that inhabits you. It happens in the opening 20 seconds. So it's kind of treading a lot of common ground, but I do think the, like, Evil Within games are pretty brown and dark, and you can kind of tell they went in the opposite direction with this one, and it's very vibrant.
I was going to ask if it was gory, but this seems like it's going in the other direction.
Yeah, it's not. It's kind of beautiful. Like when you smash them apart, it's all fractal and like, colorful and keep them exploding.
And that's what like the Persona games are like. It's more like almost like manga, like whoosh, flash lines and flashes. Okay, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, because there's not even like any bodies that are gone or anything. You know what I mean? Because like the bodies of the people who died, or I don't even know exactly how dead they are, how just like in purgatory they are, or whatever it is, but they're not there. So it's not like there's like dead bodies everywhere or whatever. It's as if like everything was fine in Akihabara. The game literally starts in Akihabara and everything's fine, and then suddenly everything's not fine.
It's funny you said that, by the way, Frank, about Persona, because Persona 4, like, amazing game, but as soon as Danny said that the fog comes in and like everyone goes missing, first thought, like, are we playing like Persona 4 again? What's going on? Because the plot of that game is, characters go missing when the fog rolls in, and it's like that's the whole thing you're supposed to kind of be afraid of in the game.
Isn't the fog kind of thick this morning? And it's so chilly.
So it's funny that that's like a repeated thing. That must be part of like Japanese folklore or something.
Yeah,
where that's like a common thing that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. That's how I'd say. Even with the enemies, it feels like like it's treading some common ground. It doesn't feel super crazy that way. Like it's not that esoteric that way in terms of the tone, but in terms of what you're doing, it's kind of like,
you're never jumping into TVs or anything. Come on,
you're doing a lot of like weird stuff. Like there was one part very close to the start where you're going into a building, and whatever the antagonist is in this universe has like trapped the building, almost like they've done, like almost like in the Matrix when they like changed something, right, and a door is gone, kind of that type of thing. And you have to go around finding, I think there were like jars or pots, you have to like smash them to get their control off of this building. And then when you do that, you run into the building to get to the next floor, and like all the floors are flipped and upside down, and you have to like crawl in a cupboard and then come out this, like all that stuff. It's like super cool. Like all that stuff is like very well done, but it's also very linear. It's a game like that where it doesn't feel open world. Like having just come off Horizon and Elden Ring, it feels, inconsistent to call this an open world game. It definitely kind of like, again, Evil Within, which was a game that had like sort of big hubs you were in almost. It wasn't like a full blown open world. As far as I know, all of Ghostwire is actually connected, but because you incrementally open it up and because it's not like super broad, you're not traveling very far, it's just like dense. And those levels themselves, the things you do within them are fairly linear. So it's not that type of open world where you really can do kind of whatever you want and tackle things in, in various different ways. It's just kind of like a very strong hub world almost for the activities you do.
Right. That sounds like Yakuza. Like, that's the game, right? It's very dense, very packed. It's not an open world game. No one would describe Yakuza like that, but it is at the same time. You get the same feeling, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's similar vibes in terms of like you kind of go back to areas and I mean, similar vibes because you're literally walking around Tokyo. So,
right. Yeah.
So like, but yeah, I would say similar. You're right. Similar in terms of like, oh, this map isn't like humongously large, but it didn't need to be because everything's like here and dense, and I'm just walking from like street to street. It's kind of like that. I think eventually it gets pretty big, the world, but I feel like that density is kind of the way it goes.
Nice.
Is there a Pokédex or like a Souls index? Because now I'm like, I want to catch them all. Like, are you supposed to catch them all or upload them all?
Yeah, it does sound like a Poké computer that you go to drop off your souls in.
Yeah, no, you don't. So the baddie souls you just kind of destroy, I think. But it's the goody ones that are kind of just like hanging out, and then some of them are in like these weird, like almost Xenobite style cubes. It's very esoteric. Like this game is like, I don't know, maybe exactly. Maybe there's like a Japanese text that explains all of this, but sometimes you'll just have this big cube that's full of souls and you got to do a thing, or this rotten tree and you got to do a little finger puzzle, do a little finger jam, and then it explodes and then you got to find the nearest telephone, of course. Classic telephone souls.
Danny's fingering the ghosts, bringing them to the telephone. Nice.
This is exactly what I was saying earlier. I love games that resonate with my daily experience. Solving the finger puzzle for the rotten tree with the ghost cube. It's just
walking around with your paper cross.
Just normal life. Just things people do.
The paper cross. Yeah, that's what you use. Actually, the paper cross is what you use to get the souls. You suck them into the paper cross guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's like a little origami. Little man thing, yeah. So there you go, Ghostwire Tokyo, March 25th. Nice. PlayStation 5 and PC.
The last question: are you like a teenager? Are you like an adult? Like, because now I'm like curious how much it leans into this. Like, is this like a typical like I don't know? Yeah. What is the main character? Is it defined?
The main character is it's a dude who has a sister. I think he might have been like an Uber Eats guy or something. He might have been. I forget. At the start, he basically is just like, it's a very like he is just the first guy that this spirit could jump into. Is basically like, and I think he fell off like a motorbike that had like a pizza thing on the back or so. I forget, but I wouldn't say he kind of fits the bill of the horror antagonist a bit, where he's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that's his job, is to be like, what's going on? But I will say that like the story, I won't get into the details or anything, but the story very early on aligns the objectives of that character and the character that inhabits him, which is the sort of magical aspect of it. It's basically Venom. It's just like
it's just comes out of you, tries to eat people.
Tokyo Venom. Ghostwire Tokyo, the latest game in the Ghostwire series. Enjoy it. Enjoy it next week.
Hey, if you want to learn a little bit more about the story, there is that Prelude that came out a little while ago,
what
visual novel.
I saw you talking about this. What is it?
Yeah. So another studio, I don't remember the name, but it wasn't Tango Gameworks as much as Steam likes to make it look like it is, developed this visual novel for Ghostwire Tokyo. It takes place, I don't know how long before, because I haven't played the main game, obviously, but it's just like a straight up visual novel. It takes like maybe 45 minutes, so it's not super long, but you're playing as this character. I won't say who, because at this point it would actually really be a spoiler given what Danny has said at this point. But yeah, it gives you backstory on some of the characters that are in Ghostwire Tokyo, and you're learning a bit about the world and also about like the paranormal stories that take place in Ghostwire Tokyo. They give you like some backstory on some side characters that help out, just stuff like that. It's worth playing if you're interested in the story and like what the hell's going on. It kind of explains it a little bit more, I think, and it gives a setup for Ghostwire Tokyo so that when you get into it, based on what Danny's saying, I haven't played it myself, but based on what Danny's saying, it'll explain a bit about what's going on with some of the characters that you meet. So it's worth putting 45 minutes into, I'd say.
Yeah, having played like the opening, whatever, 4 or 5 hours of it, like I would actually be interested to go back into it, because I'm reading the synopsis and being like, oh, I actually would like to know what this was. Yeah. So
exactly.
That's interesting. Cool. It's on Steam only? Is it? It must be on PS5.
It's
as
on
well.
Steam, Epic, PS5.
Okay. Cool beans. Yeah. There you go. I didn't know Ghostwire was a PS5. I mean, it's not coming out on Xbox or PS4, which is interesting.
That was one of the exclusives before Microsoft acquired Bethesda.
Everything.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Is Tango? Well, because they published that, but like Tango is owned by. Is it anyone? I don't know who is. Are they? Yeah. They are part of ZeniMax. So they are.
Yeah, ZeniMax. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if they actually were. Cool beans. So part of Microsoft now. What else we got on the? Why do you have God of War Facebook Messenger game, Jesse? I swear to God.
Yeah, I don't play video games for fun.
Do you play any real games?
Nope. Super Auto Pets, a VN for a game that's not out yet, and the God of War Facebook Messenger game.
Yeah, please explain this to me. Boy.
Well, I played the Ghostwire Tokyo like prelude thing, and I was just thinking about games that come out before.
How else can I waste my time today?
Exactly. Like I enjoyed wasting this 45 minutes. How about I waste 2 hours? But I was just thinking about like games that come out before games, like to promote them. Like there was PT, which obviously is for a game that never came out and probably never will. But I was thinking about it. I was looking back at my brain memories, and I was thinking like God of War Facebook. Why does that ring a bell? So I Googled it, and yeah, there's a promotional game for God of War 2018 that came out that you can only play as a text adventure on Facebook Messenger. What? It's like the first thing you could play.
Are you Kratos, like catching up with your aunt?
You're playing as Atreus, and it's like a story about him in the Norse wilds with Kratos a little bit, but like you meet Freya, I think, at some point, which doesn't make any sense. And the reward for finishing it is you get like 8 pieces of concept art. And they released a video of it if you want to know the story for whatever stupid reason. It doesn't matter at all. But like that's voiced by Mimir, where he tells you the whole story of what happens in it.
Delve deeper into the woods. Unless, of course, you're too frightened.
It's very bizarre. I'm just thinking back to like how weird it was that they even tried to make that happen. Like that they spent development time on a Facebook Messenger game.
That's like what? That's when the marketing department just had a bit too much budget. Like
Mark Zuckerberg just dropped millions on their lap. Like, please do something with this.
That's wild. Schreier earlier today was going back to play GTA, I think, and he was talking about how it's like an insight. It's a window into that moment in time when most big games had a companion app, which I totally forgotten about. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
iFruit or whatever. Stupid. Yeah, Watch Dogs had that same kind of thing. It's like, what are we doing this for?
I wonder will we think the same way about NFTs in a couple of years, where there was like a 6-month window where a couple of studios really went for it, hell for leather, and then it like dried. I mean, I hope that's the case, but
it seems like it with the NFT thing. A bunch of people have been posting like the Google Trends kind of things, and it seems like it's dropped off steeply over the last couple months. Oddly aligned with Dan Olson's video essay, Line Go Up, his Foldable Human is his YouTube channel.
It's really good,
which is a very good video essay for anyone who either is against this topic or interested in it or anything. But
I don't just want to talk about NFTs. I can't just talk about NFTs because ultimately they are just a symbol of so much more, and it is that more that is ultimately important. So let me tell you a story.
Yeah, really good breakdown of kind of the sort of the very simple core reason that sort of perpetuates a lot of that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to wait and see. There's obviously a lot of, it's funny, like the crypto stuff. If you're an exchange, this is like making bank. It reminds me a lot of like sports betting, where it's like nobody makes money off sport. I mean, there are some people. Of course, there are people who are like, you know, either have shitloads of money they can get rid of, or are, you know, exceptionally smart, and they are the exception that proves the rule that you can like make money off sports betting. But like the people who make money off sports betting are the companies that allow you to bet on them, the platforms. And it's the same with like crypto.com. Of course, crypto.com is everywhere. Crypto.com is like getting a lot of money off people who are fucking buying this stuff and like really milking the each of those transfers. They earn incredible amounts of money off of the transfers. So yeah, we'll have to see, because it's funny, because like big companies like that, they need people using it, so, and they are earning money, so they will be able to continue to remarket crypto as like, it's in their best interest to keep people coming in, and they have money to market it. So we'll have to, you know, there's like a really big incentive for them to keep marketing more people into this thing. So we'll have to wait and see.
I think my most interesting takeaway from, or the thing that stuck with me the most from the Line Go Up, that like 2-hour video by Dan Olson on NFTs, is that part of the reason that crypto and NFTs are so not insidious is the wrong word, but part of the reason they like worm their way into the like public consciousness so effectively and are so sticky is that as earning power is outpaced by like inflation and like things getting more expensive, and like wages are disproportionately kind of like stagnated over the last few decades, there is this kind of like middle ground of people who have like a little bit of savings, like they're not living totally paycheck to paycheck, but are also like not looking at a future in which they'll have like a super comfortable retirement or easily be able to buy a house. And so it's almost like it's a combination of survivorship bias of the people who do make money off of these things, and also the promise of easy money, or the promise of like an escape from the rat race. And
totally, yeah.
I think that's part of the reason it's insidious, is like I think it bypasses this instinct that a lot of people have that things aren't right, and that like wealth inequality is a worsening issue. And I think that there are kind of like the large systemic solutions to it, like reimagining our economic organization, and then there's kind of like these sort of like techno libertarian solutions, which are like, oh, what if some people gambled on invisible JPEGs?
Yeah, well, it reminds me a lot of the even in the 90s, that whole like, there was a big, and we're getting a little bit off like topic, if we keep to topics on this podcast, but like the whole you know, the rat race idea, but also like the stock market as a way out of poverty stuff that got perpetuated, which is like it's so unfair, because it's like the idea that you can smart your way out, that if you are smarter than the people around you, that you can escape poverty, which is like not untrue for some people. Like if like there are stories of rags to riches people, right? But we hear about them all the time. We don't hear about all the people who, for numerous other reasons, weren't afforded the chances, or just it wasn't lucky for them, or whatever it was. And you're right with the survivorship bias when it comes to the people who make money. Of course, the people who lose money don't talk about it as much. You know what I mean? Of course, like it's sad and depressing. But it's like that whole thing I remember reading about in the 90s and early aughts about just individuals trying to earn money off the stock market, and just how difficult it is, because like if you saved, like, you know, if you managed to like wrangle together like $20,000 to like buy some shares in a thing, like you need the time, you need to not touch that money, you need it to be a good thing, you need it to be you know, growing well, all these sort of stuff. But if you're wealthy and you have access to like $200,000 that you don't care about, that you can just like invest in anything, it's so much easier to increase your wealth, because you're able to just like put it in longer term bonds and see returns that are, you know, 10 times higher than the person who had the other money. So it's like the idea that you can like just pick the right thing or buy the right NFT is like sort of farcical. But it obviously benefits, you know.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I bought GameStop stock. I made $300.
That was very funny.
Dude.
There's a documentary about that coming out as well, isn't
Oh,
there?
really?
Yeah, probably a movie from Paramount or something on a streaming service. Who knows?
Yeah,
Paramount Plus.
Do you know what it is, Frank? I see.
I saw it.
Give it a look. It's called it's called something very stupid like Gamers Rise Up or something, but it's like
Gamers Rise Up.
It's
I want that on a T-shirt.
Is it GameStop Rise of the Players? That can't be.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, that's
fuck.
Rise of
That's
the Players.
awful.
Baby.
I thought you said it was power to the players that I got excited.
No, because that's their slogan.
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I
Rise
guess-
of the
okay.
players.
Okay, I guess there's like a
Rise
reason
of
a
the
little
Players.
bit.
Oh yeah.
Ugh, I want to throw up in my mouth.
Now we need the Adam McKay, the Big Short version of this. Where
Yeah.
everything is like quick cutting, and then like the Jimmy Fallon clip, and then
And then they get supermodels to come in and explain what like to the moon means.
Yeah.
And what is a hodl?
yeah, some model in a bathtub, and she's like, "I'm going to tell you
Yeah.
about NFTs."
Yeah.
It'd be great if you got Hodor from Game of Thrones to come in and explain what a hodl
Yes,
is. That seems like it writes itself.
DJ Hodor.
It's like I won't lie, the stories that have come out of all of these spaces are incredibly weird and interesting and mad, but it's just I wish there wasn't lots of people who can't afford to losing money at the other end of it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was like. I was inelegantly trying to express earlier is that I think that these kind of like these. I'm trying not to use the word scam because like I think I think it's a scam, but I don't want to like polarize people because I want to try to retain some objectivity about this because I do think it's like I do think you need to have like a dispassionate approach to understanding these things if you want to not immediately alienate the people who view them as a ladder out of poverty or like lower middle class existence. But I do think that there is a way in which these kind of like these ladders out of middle class existence that only work for like 1% of the people who use them. I think they act as these like socioeconomic steam vents where like the anger and like resentment over wealth inequality builds up, but then as these kind of like this is what it is. If you create the illusion that you can escape from like middle class existence or like working class existence through these like weird side channels, then it vents the urge to actually change things at a larger systemic level.
Right. Yeah.
It can't be overstated the fact that like at the start of the pandemic, really in North America, that's when crypto, NFT, everything surged because it wasn't just a health scare. It was an economic scare for so many people. They lost their jobs, they lost their businesses. So when you're offered two extremely hyper things that seem kind of like the end of the world, which is how the media was presenting it in so many ways. Like the first thing you're going to do is go, what do I do with the $10,000 I have saved up if it becomes zero overnight?
Perhaps, but the pandemic happened everywhere, and crypto is definitely something that's like growing more in Western countries. I wonder how
hyper-capitalist societies.
Well, I don't know if that. I wonder if a lot of it is cultural in some way because, like, you know, capitalism exists all over the world, but America is a very like particular, and I don't know Canada all that well. I always found it funny when I moved over here and people talked about like the American dream because like this country has lower social immobility than basically every other Western state. So the idea that like this is where if you have money, it's a terrific place to earn more money because tax is super low. And I've experienced this on the other end of being a business owner in America and going from having, you know, earning fuck all when I first moved over here to then having a little taste of what it's like when you get into a position where you have capital and can leverage capital, and it's like way different than Europe. It's like, oh, I get it. Over here, if you get to like a certain strata, then suddenly you're on easy street because everything's pointing towards, oh, you can get more off the back of other people. Like, so I think it's weird to me. It like makes sense in a way that in America a lot of this stuff is picked up because you've got the whole like you can make it here mentality and go out on your own, you know, whereas like in other countries, we kind of talked about it a little bit in the Horizon doc, for instance, but like you've got much more egalitarian type societies in Europe that are equally as capitalist. It's just that for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, you know, racism or just class strata or the amount of people, because like America's huge. I don't know.
I think maybe the best explainer for me and the thing that made that kind of like mentality click for me is Adam Curtis's The Century of the Self. I think is one of the greatest documentaries on this topic because it goes into basically like the last 100 years of American psychology and the way that Ed Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud, basically created the idea of public relations. And one of the greatest PR moves of his career was being hired by some of the early like industrialists and capitalists to associate the idea of liberty and freedom with like economic liberty and freedom, which I'm doing air quotes for those of you who are not on this video call.
By satisfying people's inner selfish desires, one made them happy and thus docile. It was the start of the all-consuming self, which has come to dominate our world today.
And it's this very insidious thing where it's why you see people who are like working like a coal miner who is not like a rich capitalist defending the tax breaks that help exclusively rich capitalists, because it's like it's the idea that that lack of regulation by a government is inherently a good thing because it is objectively freedom, and it's this it's associating the idea of lack of regulation with freedom. That is an insidious thing, because in many cases, like the policies that go in the other direction politically would help those people, but it takes a little bit of a leap to understand the way in which like sometimes creating what could be perceived as like shackles or regulation might be things that help people in some capacity.
But it's incredibly funny how quick that'll come out for the other if that other invades another country. You know what I mean? Like
weird.
It was very, very simple to come down on a lot of these the corrupt Russians. And don't get me wrong, they absolutely should. But like there is a bit of a, well, why don't the fuck you go after all the corrupt Americans that are doing worse, perhaps, or as bad in terms of, what their money is doing anyway, regardless of what the government of the country they're from is doing. But anyway, I had a really good segue into Police Story earlier with all the Japanese talk, and now I am struggling to find a way. You know who wouldn't buy? Does Jackie Chan have any crypto? Is that a
guaranteed?
No.
He didn't choose to. He didn't choose to, but his manager like made him make a coin. I guarantee it.
I hope not. He's worth like $300 million. I'm hoping he's just sitting on his shattered bones and enjoying retirement.
Why is Police Story in our notes? I want to talk about it just because it's Police Story. But
I had never seen Police Story.
Oh my God.
Jackie Chan is a one-man battalion as he sets his record straight in Police Story.
Jackie Chan was introduced to me as, through a lot of his like American works and things like Rush Hour and the Western that Owen Wilson is in that I can't remember the name of.
Shanghai Noon?
Shanghai Noon,
Nice.
yeah. Thank you. Good pull. But I remember watching. Do you guys remember the YouTube channel Every Frame a Painting? Like,
for sure. Yeah.
Tony Zhao, shoutouts.
Hi, my name is Tony, and this is Every Frame a Painting.
Yeah, Tony Zhao is awesome. So that channel was like one of my favorites of the like mid-early YouTube era, like 2013-ish or whenever that was the thing. But he has a fantastic video essay that I've watched so many times about Jackie Chan and how Jackie Chan is essentially kind of like the Buster Keaton of our era, like doing this kind of like very visceral, physical form of storytelling. And part of the video essay is going into how lost in translation a lot of the genius of what he does is when he translated from doing Chinese movies to Hollywood movies. And kind of goes into like the reasons that the editing doesn't work as well and how they kind of misunderstand what makes it work and things like that. And there's a lot of really good, like just look up Jackie Chan Every Frame a Painting if you're interested in this, because it is so, it's like 8 minutes and it is so fascinating and so interesting. Even if you don't care about like the technical stuff in filmmaking, it's just fun to watch as someone who likes media.
In movies, this comedic style goes back to the silent clowns like Chaplin, Lloyd, and Keaton. But I think Jackie has distilled it down to one line of dialogue.
Please, I said I don't want trouble.
But I had not seen a lot of Jackie Chan's Chinese filmmaking, and so I was interested in Police Story is kind of one of the big ones that gets cited a lot. So I watched it this last week, and oh my God, the entire movie. So like the only downside I think some of the like the story stuff falls a little flat. But honestly, it is so packed with like the craziest practical stunts that the whole movie I was like an 11-year-old boy. I was just like, oh my God, like so like they're like there's like a village in the opening scene that's like on a hillside, and they're like driving through it and destroying it with cars, and it's like exploding, and it's all practical. Like
so good.
And the budget of
It's
it is
ridiculous.
It's such a low budget. I looked up like a ton of stuff about this movie after. It's such a low budget compared to things that are like big Hollywood blockbusters now that it is.
If you don't pay for health and safety, it saves a lot of money.
True. That is part of it. But like, God, it's like. It's just it feels so visceral, especially because I feel like so many stunts are done in and it's not that they're done in controlled conditions, but a lot of things are like composited and CG and stuff. And like, yeah, I just like it gave me this like this excitement that I got when like the kind of excitement I got when I'd watch Indiana Jones as a kid, and then me and my brother would like go run out in the yard and like, you know, like jump off of trees and pretend to drop kick each other and stuff. Yeah, and like whip each other with like a jump rope. But yeah, and then the other thing I want to mention about Police Story is that Jackie Chan wears the coolest jumpsuit ever, and I'm wondering if I could get away with wearing a jumpsuit, like just to like to the gas station and the grocery store and stuff.
Girls are allowed to wear, well, not everyone's allowed to do whatever they want, but like I feel like society, you know, looks well on the jumpsuit woman in a jumpsuit. When my wife was pregnant, it was like easy, like that was like the go-to. Was like and dungarees. I wore dungarees for like Halloween 2 years ago. We dressed my child up as a chicken, and the two of us wore dungarees and straw hats. It was like fucking.
That's so cute.
Kids' Halloween costumes are like the best. You get that like three because you do the couples one, but then when you add the kid in, it's like gets pretty fun. I was wearing these dungarees, and I was like, why the fuck do I not like wear Well, I can't live in Oakland and walk around in dungarees. It'll be like some like Beverly Hillbillies situation or something, where people are like, where'd this guy blow in? Maybe I'm just too self-conscious to live my dreams. I don't know.
Fuck it.
I think that's the lesson here, is that we all need to be less self-conscious. And if you go to the gas station and someone sees you in your jumpsuit and they say, hey, Tom Cruise, how's Top Gun? I don't know what they would say.
What's going on, Maverick?
Yeah, exactly. If they call you Maverick, you just need to go, yeah, I am a Maverick, all right? And then you own it.
But you deny the Scientology.
Yeah, of course.
You don't accept that part. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
We denounce on this podcast. We denounce Scientology.
You renounce Xenu, but you accept the gospel of the jumpsuit.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. The thing I don't like about Scientology is just the organized religion part of it.
Right.
I'm fine with the texts.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same with Catholicism. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with the Bible. I just don't like the organization. I think we should get back to the original meaning of Xenu.
Yeah, we're more orthodox, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Can we be orthodox Scientologists?
Yeah, we believe in the words of L. Ron Hubbard as a literary mythological, like a Joseph Campbell take on Scientology.
No, I only believe in the words of Xenu. He was just a prophet. I'm
he
not
was a
saying
conduit.
that he wasn't.
Yeah.
He was a conduit. He was a prophet. I'm not saying that he's not like important within our orthodoxy, but I think
this is already splintering.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like how Islam recognizes that Jesus like did exist and was a guy, and he was a prophet, but he's not like the son of God. You know, we recognize L. Ron Hubbard, but he's just a conduit for the teachings of Xenu.
He's just chilling.
Well, totally. Yeah. We need to find the original tablets ourselves.
I have to share this. I was planning a road trip like a year or two ago, and I was looking up the North Coast in California, and there is a site, I can't remember what it's called, so it'll be hard to find based on what I'm saying here, but there is a site on the North Coast of California that is like a Scientology storage facility, and it is, I believe they store a bunch of L. Ron Hubbard's original text there or something. I can't remember what it's for, but some sort of like Scientology relics are stored at like a bunker, and this is not a conspiracy theory. This is like on Google Maps, and it is there's a weird
the Dead Sea Scrolls of Scientology are hidden in Mendocino County.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. The Coptic scripture of L. Ron Hubbard. A lot of people don't know he wrote it in Coptic, but anyway.
What is Coptic?
It's a funny word. If I recall correctly, so I studied religion in school as well, but the Coptic, isn't Coptic a language? It's like a lost language, but the Dead Sea Scrolls were written, the language of the Copts. Sorry, I have to say this.
Hey man, the only language
you got to say
bullets.
that T.
Yeah.
When cops are speaking, I hear oink oink. That's about it.
All Copts are bastards. It's COPTS.
Yes.
Was that what was written on the Dead Sea Scrolls?
It was written in Coptic Christian, which is why there's this guy John Allegro who was wrote a very controversial book back in the day called "The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross," and and it was basically about how like early Christianity, proto-Christianity was a mushroom cult, and it was mostly controversial because there were only like 7 people who could read the Dead Sea Scrolls. So like if you're like one of the 7, you're like, yeah, this is
say
all
whatever you want.
Yeah, totally. And people are like, I that doesn't seem true, but I don't know enough Coptic to refute it.
You try and use Google Translate on it, and it just like It's like when we used it in Japan and it turned that skier on television into the world. Or what was it?
I can't even remember.
Also or than or something.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, fucking hell. Anyway, there's your Scientology minute on the Noclip podcast.
Yeah.
Any other business before we drop out? We put the Black Mesa doc up today. We're probably gonna do the funding thing by the time this is up. I balked on it last week because I was thinking we should get this Black Mesa thing out probably before we start asking people for money all over again. So at least we've had a run on that one. Yeah, so it should be up. So check out our new channel and check out the trailer if you're interested at all. But was there anyone else wanted to squeeze on in here?
I want to know about Severance briefly, please.
Yeah, I can just do the quick thing. So
every time you find yourself here, it's because you chose to come back.
Severance is incredible. It's a new show, miniseries by Ben Stiller on Apple TV. There's right now there's 5 out of the 9 episodes out. The short way to pitch it is it's Charlie Kaufman meets Black Mirror. The premise is this like surreal tech dystopia, this tech company where if you get a job there, there's a floor there. It feels very much like Aperture Science or like Stanley Parable. There's a floor at this tech company called The Severed. And when you get a job there, you half of your brain is dictated to workspace and the other half is your outside work. And when you're in the office, you have no consciousness of the outside world. And when you're in the outside world, you have no consciousness of your working life. So the working souls are essentially stuck in this office purgatory, and they have no idea. Like, yeah, I think my Audi is like a bodybuilder. I think my Audi, is very seductive. And then when they're not at work, they're like, yeah, I don't know what I do all day, but I'd rather not think about work. And there's like protests, like you shouldn't. This is like tech enslavement. It's like it's raising so many incredible. It's like. It's awesome.
That's cool.
And it's not like, it doesn't like beat you over the head with it like Black Mirror. It's like, it leans more into Charlie Kaufman, where it's like, this is just a fun mind exercise. It's done well. The sets are crazy. Like it feels also like Spike Jonze. Like it's just, I really love this show. Severance. I highly recommend it.
Wow, what happened to Ben Stiller? What the fuck?
Is he directing it or in it?
Yeah, he's directing it. He directed it.
Wow.
So because he has his own company, I think it's called it's not Red Letter Meteor, it's like Red Hour Films. It's very similar. But Zoolander 2 came out and bombed, and Ben Stiller's like, all right, I'm done. I'm done doing comedy movies. I want to do what I want to do. I want to direct. So a few years ago, he directed a miniseries called Escape at Dan Mora with Benicio del Toro, Patricia Arquette, and Paul Dano. That was excellent. And so now this is his next miniseries. And yeah, it's not like there's funny moments in the show, but it's a great drama miniseries. So yeah, Severance rules, and I'm excited. It's like how Lost was, or even just recently with Yellow Jackets, where I'm all caught up, and it's like shit. When's the next episode?
Put it out already.
yeah. So I want more people to get into it. It's smart. They're doing the weekly. They're dipping it out weekly on Apple TV. So yeah, Severance rules.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah,
thanks for bringing it up. Yeah,
that might be next week's episode. It sounds like.
Yeah, Severance. Yeah, I'm trying to think what is happening game wise. I guess Ghostwire's out.
Final
Kirby?
Fantasy.
No.
Yeah. No, March is stacked. So GTA 5 just came out, the PS5 remaster and online. Final Fantasy Strangers of Paradise is this Friday.
Yeah. Was that the Chaos game?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Chaos.
Which is, Team Ninja hack and slash. I'm all in. And then, Kirby, Ghostwire Tokyo. So lots of, this is a huge month. It's exciting. And then, still chipping away at Elden Ring and everything else before.
Dude, 5 minutes before we went here, I just went to a place in Elden Ring that was I'm 40 hours in. I was like, what the fuck is this? Where, what? This is, what? Huh?
Yeah.
This game is people keep saying, I finally completed 100 hours. I'm having so much fun with this stupid ass game. It's so good. God damn it. God damn it. They did it. They did it. Those monsters, they did it. Trying to make us not talk about Elden Ring on this podcast. Thank you all for hanging out today. Thank you all for listening, folks. Our Black Mesa documentary, a huge team effort, is available on youtube.com/noclipvideo, noclip.video, although that won't bring you to the documentary, so maybe don't go there. Among Us documentary getting worked on. Jeremy's working on Jane Dev. We're getting ready to launch the new channel in not that long now. Jesse's working on behind the scenes docs. I'm getting the first episode of Counterpoint put together. We're gonna have I feel like I need to address this a little bit. We're gonna have an update on Legacy of Kain soon. We're definitely doing it, but it might not be an episode of Greatest Hits because we might have opened a door there, and we might have to go back and do another vote with the production crew people and just give us a little bit longer to get Legacy Kane done. But we're getting it done because I feel like it's now entered a possibility space that where we won't be able to have the production team as hands-on for a while. So maybe we'll do something else. So in the meantime, so keep your eyes open for that production crew. We'll have a meeting before the month is out as well. If you'd like to support our podcast, fund our documentaries, and get access to all of the bonus episodes in the official Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/Noclip. We're at Noclip Video on Twitter, at Danny O'Dwyer, at Gurasha, at Frank Howley, at Jeremy B. Jane. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Throw us a review if you want. That'd be awesome. And yeah. We'll see you next time. What's everyone doing for the rest of the day? What games are you playing, Jesse?
Oh, man. I'm going to go back to that God of War Facebook game, baby. No, I'm checking out this indie, like roguelike gross game called Golden Light. It's just disgusting. It's all about everything is meat and you're eating meat. And it's like supposed to be a horror game. It's Frank. It would be totally up your alley. You liked Cruelty Squad. It's in the same vein. Yeah. It is disgusting. It is a disgusting game. It's great. You find an axe on the ground and you can eat it. I don't know. Like, that's the kind of game this is.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this looks like retro FPS. Oh, this is, yeah, this looks cool. Golden Light.
What's it called?
Golden Light.
That sounds awesome.
Golden Light.
Yeah, this looks rad.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah. It's very highly reviewed on Steam.
Is it new?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, March 11th. So, yeah, just a few days ago.
Oh, man. All right, let's check this out. This could be a fun little one. Little indie guy. Who made it? Mr. Pink.
I know.
Creator of, I think just this.
I believe he was in Reservoir Dogs as well.
Speaking of, Jeremy, what are you playing this week?
Oh, Lord. I don't know. I probably will play some more Like a Dragon. I am 61 hours into Elden Ring.
Oh, boy.
I feel like I'm... I don't know. People are saying it's 90 hours. I feel like I'm getting close to the end, but I feel like that's an illusion. And they're...
That fucking map.
It's
can't be trusted.
Giant. Yeah.
What a fucking joke.
It has been as large a task as it has been to explore the map. It has been an equally massive task to avoid seeing the map posted on Twitter.
100%. I'm trying not to.
Yeah.
Because it keeps zooming.
Yeah, totally.
Like I feel like our game's gonna do this from now on, where they're like, "Oh, this is how big the map is." Haha, motherfucker.
I hope so. It is.
I wish
it is such a. It's a wild game. I definitely like. We'll have to do a more in-depth discussion about it down the line when everyone has played it. Yeah, because it is both like one of my favorite FromSoft games, and I also have some criticisms of it, but I also absolutely love it. But it is interesting the way that it reveals some things about open world design, and also how the open world approach reveals some interesting things about how like FromSoft storytelling functions, and the kind of like strengths and weaknesses of that when applied to a new format. But
yeah, I feel like when we're all done, maybe we can have that. Do it as a patron cast or something. That'll be fun.
Hell yeah. 2025.
Exactly. Yeah, good point.
All done ring is the name of the podcast.
Nice. Thank you. That's pretty good. Frank, what are you playing?
I'm excited to try GTA Online. I was so hyped for it like in 2013 and nothing worked. So I'm hoping now with this PS5 update, GTA Online's going to work. I made my character. I have a meth farm. So I'm excited. I hope it works out. We'll see. Yeah, like it looks so cheesy, and it looks and runs great on PS5. So yeah, I'm going to try that out this week. I did like the opening missions in GTA 5, and it's like, oh, this feels good to play.
You should check in with Hillbilly Agenda, see how they're doing. Become a member of H-Bag. I'm gonna play more Elden Ring, and now I think maybe some Yakuza Like a Dragon. But I'm heading off this weekend. I'm going on a overlanding trip through Death Valley, so I won't be doing too much. Won't be bringing Elden Ring to the desert this time. Let's say that. Might get some weird looks. Okay, that's a podcast. Thanks for checking us out. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.